Hey everyone, and welcome back. We're diving deep into something that affects every single one of us today, training.
Ooh, training, yeah.
We'll be exploring a 2009 article from the Annual Review of Psychology.
Oh, good.
It's by Herman Aguinis
Anonymous.
and Kurt Krager. And just a heads up, Aguinis is pronounced like Aguinis, like the beer.
Okay, got it. Like the beer.
Yeah, so they really get into the nitty-gritty of the benefits of training and development.
Yeah, training and development, that's something that's always talked about, but not always fully understood. I mean, companies in the U.S. spend over $126 billion on training every single year.
Yeah.
But what's the real return on that investment? What are they getting out of it?
Yeah, what's the
Not-
turn-off?
Not just for the companies themselves, but for the individuals, the teams, even society as a whole. That's what we're going to uncover today.
Okay, so let's start with the individual. I think we've all felt that that feeling of being stuck, in a rut at work or maybe even in our personal lives and just wishing we had a specific skill or knowledge.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And Aguinis and Krager actually highlight some pretty compelling research that shows training can be a total game changer.
It can be, yeah.
One study that really stands out is a meta-analysis by Arthur and colleagues back in 2003. They looked at a ton of data and found that training consistently leads to a significant improvement in job performance.
Yeah, and I remember reading that study. It found an average effect size of 0.62,
Oh, yeah, I remember that now.
which sounds kind of technical,
Yeah,
but it basically means that training has a real measurable impact on how well people do their jobs.
exactly.
And what's even more interesting is that training isn't just about, cramming information into our brains.
Right.
It actually changes the way we think and approach problems.
Yeah.
Aguinis and Krager talk about this study in India where mechanics who went through on-the-job training developed this incredible ability to fix even the most mangled car fenders.
I remember reading about that too.
Yeah. It wasn't just about following steps. They developed this intuition for how to solve the problem.
Yeah, like they could just look at a crumpled fender and know exactly where to push and pull to get it back into shape.
Exactly.
That's the kind of expertise that comes from, the combination of experience and the right training, not just from reading a manual.
Right. A perfect example of how training goes beyond those hard skills and can actually change how we approach challenges and make us more adaptable in all these complex situations.
Yeah, that's such a key point.
Yeah.
It's not just checking boxes and getting certifications.
Yeah.
It's about developing a deeper understanding and the ability to really think critically and solve problems creatively.
Absolutely.
So what are some other ways that training can benefit us, beyond those hard skills?
Well, it can also have a huge impact on soft skills. Think cross-cultural awareness, leadership, even self-management.
Mm-hmm.
Like imagine working on a global team with people from all over the world. Training in cross-cultural communication can completely change how effectively you all work together.
Oh, for sure.
And there's research to back this up. Frayne and Geringer, back in 2000, found that sales training not only boosted salespeople's confidence, but actually led to a long-term increase in their sales numbers.
So it's a win-win, right?
Yeah.
Individuals gain valuable skills and confidence, and companies see that positive impact on their bottom line.
Exactly.
That's a pretty good argument for investing in training, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But the benefits actually go even further,
Oh.
impacting not just individuals and companies, but entire organizations.
Now that's thinking big. I'm curious to hear more about that.
So when we start looking at that organizational level, the research might not be as extensive, but the findings are just as exciting.
Okay, so how does training actually work at that level?
Think of a company as like a complex machine, right?
Yeah.
Lots of different parts working together. Training can be the oil that keeps everything running smoothly.
I like that. So what kind of benefits are we talking about here?
Well, Aguinis and Krager mention a few European studies. These studies link training to things like increased profitability, higher levels of employee satisfaction, even a better reputation.
So it's not just about profits. It's about making the work environment better for employees too.
Exactly. Happier employees, stronger company culture, better reputation, it all kind of flows together.
Makes sense.
And speaking of reputation, there's this really cool example about the Navy SEALs.
Okay, the SEALs, yeah.
Now, their training is known for being intense, right?
Oh, yeah.
But it's not just about physical and mental toughness. It's also about building a brand.
A brand.
Yeah, a brand that represents excellence, dedication.
I never thought about it that way, but it makes sense.
Right. Their training is almost like its own marketing campaign.
Yeah, it shows what they're all about.
Exactly. It shows how training can actually be used strategically to shape an organization's image and how people see them. But it goes even further.
Oh,
Training doesn't just affect individual companies, it can have this ripple effect on society as a whole.
now that's the big picture. How does that work?
Well, economists have always said that a well-trained workforce is super important for economic
How
growth.
about
They even have a term for it, human capital.
human capital? Okay.
It basically refers to the skills, knowledge, and experience of a country's workforce.
So investing in training is like investing in a country's human capital,
Exactly.
which then helps boost the economy.
Right. Aguinis and Krager even mentioned some stats on this. For example, one study found that giving tax credits for employee training could generate 10 times the initial investment in increased revenue for a country.
Wow, 10 times. That's a huge return.
It is, so it seems like a no-brainer for governments to support these kinds of initiatives.
Are there any countries that are doing this really well?
Aguinis and Krager give some examples, like the Pacific Islands and Poland see training as a key part of their development.
Wow, that's great to hear. So it's clear that training has a lot to offer on so many different levels. But how do we make sure it's actually effective? I mean, anyone can just throw money at training programs,
Wow.
right?
Right, it's got to be done right. Aguinis and Krager outline a few key factors that can really make or break a program. One of the most important things is something called a needs assessment.
A needs assessment.
Yeah, it might sound simple, but a lot of companies skip over it.
So it's basically figuring out what kind of training is actually needed.
Exactly. What skills are missing, what knowledge gaps need to be filled. It's about being strategic, not just throwing random training programs out there.
Makes sense. You wouldn't build a house without blueprints, right?
Exactly. You got to have a plan. And you need to bring in experienced people who know what's needed to reach those goals.
So you've got your plan, you know what you need, what's next?
Well, then you got to think about the people who will be doing the training. Are they actually motivated? Research shows that people who are engaged get a lot more out of it.
That seems obvious, right? If you're not interested, you're not going to learn much.
Exactly. And here's where it gets interesting. Aguinis and Krager actually say we should embrace mistakes as part of learning.
Mistakes. Like encourage people to mess up.
Yeah, they call it error training.
Air training.
It might seem counterintuitive, but think about it. When we make mistakes, especially in a safe environment, we learn a lot more.
Oh, okay, yeah. Like learning to ride a bike. You're going to fall a few times, but you learn something each time.
Exactly. It's the same with any kind of learning. By letting people make mistakes and then helping them fix those mistakes, we help them really understand and be ready for anything.
I like that. A learning environment where it's okay to make mistakes.
Hmm.
Speaking of learning environments, we can't forget about technology. Online learning is everywhere now, but is it always the best?
It definitely has its perks, but Aguinis and Krager talk about something called adaptive guidance for online learning.
Adaptive guidance.
It's like having a virtual coach who can answer your questions, help you understand the material, make sure you're getting the most out of it.
Oh, that's helpful.
And finally, one of the most important things, transfer.
Transfer.
Yeah, taking what you learned in training and actually using it on the job.
Right, otherwise it's all for nothing.
Exactly. Training is only as good as what you do with it. And studies show that support from peers and supervisors is crucial for making that happen.
It's like creating this culture of learning, right? Where people feel comfortable trying new things, experimenting, even making mistakes, and they know they've got support.
Absolutely. It's about seeing training not as this one-time thing, but as a continuous journey of growing and developing.
Wow, we covered a lot today. From individual growth to organizational change to impacting society as a whole, training is pretty amazing.
It really is. And we've only just scratched the surface here. The world of training is always changing with new tech and ideas popping up all the time.
Yeah, it's definitely got me thinking about how I can apply this to my own life and work.
I think that's the best takeaway. Training's an investment in ourselves, our companies, our future.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of training. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing.